Hey guys, it's Ali. I'm a systems engineer at the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, and in this video, I'm going to show you 7 steps you can take, 7 things you can start doing in order to transform your life 180 degrees in the next 3 to 6 months. Now, these things are things I've used myself to transform my entire life. About 6 to 8 months ago, I was very depressed. I was living in Boston by myself. I was struggling. I was still finishing school. I was kind of just hopeless in life, and I started doing these things. And 6 months later, I got a job at NASA as a systems engineer. I finished my PhD. I graduated. I built a profitable online business on the side. I grew my YouTube channel to 28,000 subscribers. And I got so good at writing that even just a few days ago, I made a post on LinkedIn that got 1 million views in literally just 48 hours. So it's kind of crazy how my life transformed like upside down in just like 6 months. And now that I've reflected on the things that I have done, I want to propagate it back to you such that you can do it in as little as 3 months. So here are the 7 things that you can start doing. And the very first thing I started doing, which is like get crystal clear on what it is that you're trying to achieve and why. And guys, you'll be surprised, like 90 to 95% of people I talk to, some of my coaching clients or some of the people who buy some of my online services, most of the time think they have a problem, which is like related to ads or copywriting or something's wrong in their business or, oh, I hired the wrong person. But majority of the time, all these problems in their business and personal life stem to one simple fact, which is they don't know exactly what they want and why. And one thing I started doing around 6 months ago, which has really, really served me, is I started using a document and I called it the user manual, basically for my life and for my day. And on it, I sat down and I thought very deeply about what I want in my life. And I wrote that goal down, right? And the goal for me was basically graduate, get a job at NASA, build a company on the side, do all these things. And the reason behind it, I wrote a very emotional reason why I wanted to do that, right? I don't want to waste my life. I wanted to live the best life possible. I want to retire my parents, give my family the best life possible. I want to give myself the best life possible. Like I just sat down for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes and got crystal clear on what it is I'm trying to do and why. And the moment I figured out what that is, I slapped it somewhere on my desktop and I looked at it every single day. And that was step one, which is get clarity on where it is that you're trying to go. Again, it sounds simple, but you'd be shocked. A lot of people don't do this. A lot of people don't even know that this is their bottleneck. Now, once you do that, the very second step is ask yourself, okay, now in order for me to achieve the goal, what are the actions needed? What are the habits needed? What are the type of things I need to start doing to achieve the goal? In my case, I needed to write some research papers and submit a proposal to NASA and submit my graduation thesis, as well as learn how to build an online course, learn how to build an online coaching program, learn how to run paid ads, learn how to create content, learn how to do all these things. So you once you figure out the goal, you figure out what exactly are the actions you need to do. Now, most of you guys already know what the actions you need to do are, and a reason you might be stuck is you're not connecting it to that goal and why on a day-to-day basis. Hence, you may lose motivation. You may feel a lack of discipline and things of that nature. But once you have these things figured out that you need to do, you really want to design your environment to make doing these things very easy. There's an excellent book on this called Atomic Habits by James Clear. In my opinion, is the best self-help book of all time because it is very practical in saying that once you figure out what you need to do, you need to just basically do it. But how do you do it? You make doing it easy. You remove discipline out of the equation and you build a system and you design your environment around doing that very simple thing. And I'll give you an example. Like one thing I've been really trying to do lately is just get in better shape. And I'm like, always like, oh, I don't have time to do the workouts, or I don't have time to do anything of that nature. And then something I learned from Atomic Habits is that like you basically design your environment such that doing the push-ups is something that's very, very, very easy. So and then you stack it on top of another habit. So what I did is I just got myself a really nice large yoga mat and I placed it next to my alarm. And my alarm is across the room such that every morning when the alarm goes off and I have to get up to press the alarm to turn it off, I'm stepping on the yoga mat. And when I see that, I'm like, oh, I should probably just drop down and do the 10 push-ups. And then I started doing stretching as well. And now I'm just like, I built an amazing habit very seamlessly, just simply by tweaking my environment. I didn't change my willpower. I didn't become more disciplined. I didn't do any of that guru stuff that people talk about in self-help. I just basically made it very easy to do the things that I need to do. Now, when it comes to your business and the things you need to do in your like marketing or your sales, it could very much be the same thing. You will lay out your tasks and the things you need to do such that they are the thing that is easy to do. There are multiple ways to do that. You can have accountability. You could basically have entrepreneur friends or people that you can check in and bounce ideas from and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think about this? And then get feedback from other people. One other thing you can do is just design your digital environment in a way that makes doing the work very easy. For example, one thing I have on my computer is that my desktop is very organized and it only has the things relating to the work I need to do. And then when I open my browser, I use Google Chrome. The default tab that opens in my browser is the one that shows me the work I need to do. So I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do it over here. And another thing I've done is I've hired coaches, I've joined masterminds such that I have other people in my virtual environment that just by thinking about them or just by having a conversation with them, I'm automatically pointing my head to think more about like things like marketing, like business, like sales, things of that nature. So again, very, very easy hack is just once you figure out what you need to do, first thing you got to do, like no questions asked, is design your physical and virtual environment in a way that makes achieving that thing very, very easy. Now, even this brings me to step 3 that you got to do, which is once you are able to design your environment, you're not going to able to fully automate yourself as a human. You're still a human. You still have emotions and you still have free will. You're not going to be able to fully turn yourself into an assembly line. There's still going to be a little bit of an internal dialogue that you're going to need to learn how to do. This is also known as self-talk. This is a very, very, very powerful concept. This is basically the things that you tell yourself when a certain situation arises or what you tell yourself on a day-to-day basis as well. And this is extremely, extremely important, especially if you're in a dynamic environment where things are constantly changing and you have to make decisions all the time. You need to be very conscious and aware of your own self-talk, the things that you're telling yourself on a regular basis. And I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you think of a task that you need to do. Let's say, I don't know, you have to write copy for your ad or you need to sit down and write a few hooks. Very often, a big cause of procrastination is people will say, oh, I got to write an ad down, or like, oh, I got to shoot a video. And like that, the way you're kind of relaying that information to yourself is overwhelming, unexciting, uninspiring. And just kind of the brain ends up saying, no, let's just put it off. Now, the self-talk I use with myself, the way I communicate with myself, is I'm very wary of that, right? A big part of procrastination comes from overwhelm, and the other part of procrastination comes from fear. And I annihilate both of them with simple things that I tell myself. I'll give you an example. Let's say I need to sit down and make a YouTube video, like the one I'm recording right now. Right before recording this video, my brain was like, "Oh man, we got to sit down and talk about a video." Like, "Oh man, like, do you know what you want to talk about? What if we don't have the right thing? Like, do you have the right? Like, is the lighting even like that kind of chatter in the back of my mind?" And if you're not conscious, you can very easily give in to these temptations because your brain will argue with you and it will make a lot of sense, yeah. But then you can basically tell it through self-talk, oh, I don't need to sit down and record a video. I just need to sit down, turn my ring light on and turn my microphone on, and I'm just going to talk for a little bit. And then I'm going to see if I want to record it or not, right? That's a much easier argument to win with your brain, right? Because the time investment and the energy investment on that is very, very little. And that kind of breaks the inertia of getting started, right? If you've studied physics in high school or college, you know that part of Newton's law is that an object at rest stays at rest, an object in motion stays in motion. It is very hard to accelerate. It's not hard to keep going. This part about talking to yourself is to make things as little overwhelming as possible and always focus on starting and just saying, I'm going to take a first step rather than overwhelm yourself on the entire task. But the other part of self-talk that is also very, very relevant is how you deal with yourself on an emotional level. And what I mean by that is at the end of the day, let's say a day went by and you got some work done, but you didn't get as much as you'd like to do. How do you deal with yourself? Do you beat yourself up? Do you say, oh man, like you could have done more? Like, of course you didn't do that. Like, why? Like, and then you kind of start berating yourself. Or do you say like, you know what? I got some work done today. Maybe it's not as much as I hoped, but I'm still okay with that. Let's see how I can get more done tomorrow and just kind of be more progressive and focus more on improving the future than spending too much time and energy on like what happened in the past. That's another very important underrated aspect in business and life. How do you deal with yourself when things go right? How do you deal with yourself when things go wrong? Some people in psychology books call this self-parenting. I think that's like too esoteric of a thing to say. Like, kind of assumes that you're a child and then you're a parent at the same time, and it kind of goes into some very deep esoteric stuff that I don't really like to think about. I think of it more as simply like from a computer science or a computer engineering perspective. Like you're feeding your brain commands. You're basically you are a human and you are a man riding a machine, which is your body and your mind, or a woman. And you're basically telling yourself you're basically like someone picture your body and your mind as a horse that you're riding, and you're just someone who's in control, and you is like the conscious you, the aware you, the one who's thinking and who's making decisions. And then your mind, your programs that exist in your physical body are just kind of like the horse that you're riding, and you get to steer the horse however way you want using the right self-talk. So again, in summary of point number 3 is you want to make sure that you are reducing overwhelm by talking to yourself in a way that focuses on starting tasks rather than having to complete them, which can add a bit of anxiety and overwhelm. And then you want to make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of positive reinforcement and focusing on what works and doing more of what works. And sure, analyzing what doesn't work, but not spending too much time beating yourself up over it. That's something that's very, very important. Now, point number 4, that's very, very important. This is kind of a modern problem. This did not used to be a problem, but I have very good news for you, because for this point number 4, if you tackle this point properly, you are ahead of 99.9% of people. And I think out of all the points I've mentioned so far, this was the one that was really like the big game changer for me. And that is phone management. As you can see right now, I don't have my phone on me. It's not even in my pocket. My phone is sitting somewhere over there in the corner of my room where I put it every day. And then I have an Apple Watch for emergencies, where if my mom calls me, my dad calls me, my siblings, a friend in need or something, if someone calls me, I have my watch connected to my phone. And even if you don't have an Apple Watch, what you could do is you could just simply put your phone away somewhere not within sight and just turn the speaker on, make the volume very loud, such that if someone calls you, you can go and grab it. And another thing I do is I turn off all notifications. Literally every single notification except calling is turned off. And I tell my family and I tell my friends, hey, if you guys need me, call me. If it's an emergency, call me. Otherwise, I'm going to text you back. It just may not be immediate because I have work to do. I have important things to do. People are usually very understanding about this. This right here, I think, is the biggest game changer, because even some of my entrepreneur friends who are making good money, they could be doing way better, but they're spending like 3-4 hours a day scrolling their phones on Instagram, on Facebook, on things of that nature. I'm not a big fan of like completely isolating yourself. Like I still think, okay, maybe you need like an hour a day. Just connect with your friends, see what social events are going on. I do believe in serendipity. I think focus is important, but you also have to leave room for things in life. But at the same time, you want to make sure that your phone is not something that's taken control of you and is not controlling your life, and that you're the one controlling it. That's something very, very important. Now, a very simple way to start using your phone more properly is to track your screen time, which brings me to point number 5, which is tracking. And I was reading a very cool book. It was called Measure What Matters. It was about the story of how Google grew, the company, how Intel, electronics chips company, grew, how Apple, a company that made the iPhone, the iMac, and all the other cool products, including the Vision Pro, I think the most recent one. What separates these companies from the other companies, and the immediate thing that comes to mind is, they had great ideas and they had great vision. That is true, but there's tons of other companies that had great ideas and great visions, but we never heard about them. And that's because what separates them is execution. And a big part of execution is tracking what you're executing, right? So remember, we talked about in points 1 and 2 is that you got to figure out what you need to do and then design your environment in a way that makes it easy for you to do. Okay, that's fine. We got that out of the way. But how do you actually know if you're doing the right thing on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis? Are you keeping up with your goals? And this is something where tracking becomes humongous. Is once you set discrete goals that you want to achieve, you need to track them. You need to track, are we doing the inputs? Are we doing the lead measures? Are we doing the right things day to day? And this is not only true of business, this is true of personal life as well. Now, I mentioned an example earlier of trying to do the push-ups in the morning. And basically, one thing that has really motivated me to do it is on my computer, I have a document that pops up every time I open Google, my Google Chrome browser, and it's basically literally just a column with a bunch of checks and empty boxes that I tick off day by day, and it has the date next to it, and it just asks me, did you do the push-ups today? And that 80% of the time motivates me to go and do it, So that in combination with designing my environment has made me not miss a single day of doing that because it's so easy, it's so doable, it's so repeatable. My environment is designed in a way to encourage it, and I'm tracking it every day. So something I encourage you to do is, if you want to change your behavior or if you want to get different results in business or in life, figure out what the actions you need to do on a repeatable basis are. Now, in the case of sales, it could be reaching out to prospects. In the case of marketing, you could be writing new hooks for new ads or doing outreach. In the case of trying to grow a YouTube channel, you're posting or you're sitting down and writing ideas or you're making thumbnails, whatever it is. But figure out what the behavior or the action that you need to do is and simply track it. And you don't need anything fancy. You can just literally use a simple Excel sheet or a Google Sheets, which is what I use. And just basically in the Google Sheets or in Excel, there's a very simple function that you can have a cell with a box that you can tick yes or no. And then next to it, just put the date and look at that thing every single day. And bam. You'd be surprised at how the very simple act of tracking is going to transform your life. I know it sounds crazy, but it's that simple. Now, step number 6, and this is where we're starting to get more detailed and more intricate territories, which is scheduling. Some people call this time blocking. Some people call this implementation intention. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but the reality is we live in a physics-based world where a reaction requires an action. And if the reaction you want is a certain result in business and life, you got to take the right action. And if you want to take the right action, apart from scheduling it and apart from designing your environment and tracking whether you're doing it or not, if you want to increase the odds of doing it, you need to schedule it. You need to allocate a time and place to do it. And again, in my case, for example, with the push-ups, it was very simple. I told myself I'm going to do it every morning when I turn off my alarm, right there next to my alarm. So it is very simple. My brain has stored the image or the visual or what I envision would happen if I were to go ahead and do that. Now, in the case of business, you need to do the same thing. Like if you're currently struggling to attract clients in your business, then you might say, okay, my number one action is to attract clients. Well, how do I do that? Well, I got to do outreach, post content, run ads, and I'm going to make a decision about that based on my time and money trade-off. If I have a lot of money and very little time, I'm going to go with ads. If I have a lot of time, very little money, I'm going to go with content, and I'm going to go with outreach. And once you do that, if you don't schedule, if you don't say, I'm going to sit down for 1 hour tonight at 8 p.m. on my desk and do some outreach. If you don't do that, the odds of you doing it are slim to none. And that is very simple because the human brain is only going to prioritize based on things that it's expecting. And if you're not expecting that a certain time comes up and you're supposed to be doing something, you'll spend too much time deciding and arguing and not actually doing. Now, the magic of scheduling is when you say, okay, tonight at 8 p.m., I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write 3 hooks for YouTube content. And if you're hardcore, you can even set an alarm to help you do it. What that's going to do is when the alarm goes off or when it's 8 p.m. and you sit at your desk and you're getting ready to do your hooks, then you don't have to argue with your brain that much. Like, sure, they may be a bit of procrastination, which you can address using the self-talk method I talked about earlier. But the idea is most of the time your brain's just going to do it because you've already made the decision. And very often procrastination, stress does not come from anxiety or overworking or whatever. It simply comes from not having decided and putting off a decision. And when you're putting off the decision, you're building up all this anxiety and stress, and you're just kind of delaying things because you haven't decided. Now, the moment I decide, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write 3 hooks for my YouTube videos today at 6 p.m., and the time comes, there's a very high chance I'm going to sit down and do it. Which brings me to very last point number 7, which honestly is one of my personal favorites because it makes the work a lot more fun, and it was a total game changer for me. And it's once you sit down to do the work, like let's say the scheduled time has arrived and you're sitting down to do the work. Obviously, you want to close all the other tabs, or you want to remove distractions. You want to put your phone away, but you want something called an action trigger. What I mean by an action trigger, something that as soon as your body senses, sees, feels, hears, smells, you start getting into action. And the biggest hack I have found for that is music. So I have certain playlists. I'm actually a DJ myself. I'm a musician. I produce music in my part-time. And one thing I have been doing lately is I mix hour-long playlists for deep work. And my action trigger is as soon as I sit down to do the work, I play one of those playlists. And it's an hour-long electronic music playlist, chord progressions that kind of loop with some melodies. It's very nice. Not only does it sound good and it makes me enjoy and it blocks out the noise and it helps me get into flow state, but what it does is something magical, is that now my brain knows the moment that music is turned on, the moment that playlist is turned on, I'm getting into work. I start getting into action. And again, with doing the right things to transform your life is really going to come down to your day-to-day actions. Obviously, in step one, you mentioned sit down, write down what you actually want to do and why you want to achieve it. But the moment you know that, then all the other 6 steps I have mentioned are just helping you to do the right actions, right? Because that's really what life is about. It's about again, action, reaction, right action, right reaction. Obviously, there's a bit of spirituality involved. There's a bit of luck involved. There's a bit of rolling the die involved. But the whole idea is that if you want certain results in your business and life, you have to do the right things. And if you want to do the right things, you have to take the right actions. If you want to do that, you have to figure out what it is that you want such that you know what actions are needed. And then you have to design your entire life around making those actions the easy things to do. And that's where environment design, self-talk, putting the phone away, putting distractions away, scheduling the things you need to do, having an action trigger such as music. And I'm going to put a link to one of my playlists or my other channel where I make some of these playlists. Maybe you can try them, see if they can help you focus. But yeah, if you follow these 7 steps within 3 months and you do them consistently, your life is going to be upside down. Your life is going to be turned upside down. You don't need to do anything crazy, nothing esoteric. You don't need to go and drop, I don't know, $10,000 on a mindset program. You don't need to do any of that stuff. You just got to figure out what you want, figure out what you need to do, and cater your life and environment and build systems around doing it. And with that being the case, thank you for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, love.